A month passed quieter than any stretch of time I could remember. It wasn't empty, just steady. We took a house on the edge of a small town that didn't ask many questions. A fixer-upper, the kind folks avoided because it leaned a little and groaned in the wind. The inside was decent enough to live in, 4 walls, a roof that mostly held, but it needed hands, patience, and time. Things I had more of now than I ever did riding with Bill. I told Albany I'd get it into tip-top shape, build it from the inside out with my own 2 hands. She smiled at that, like she believed me without needing proof. Some mornings I caught her reaching for her chest, fingers brushing empty cloth where a badge used to rest. It happened without thinking, like muscle memory. One morning I covered her hand with mine before she could pull it back. "You're more than a piece of tin," I told her quietly. "Always were." She nodded, but the loss still sat heavy behind her eyes. I found work at a ranch under a name that didn't belong to either of us. It was honest work, hard work, the kind that left your hands sore and your back aching in a good way. I'd come home smelling of dirt and sweat, tired in a way that let me sleep without ghosts whispering at the edge of my thoughts. Building, instead of taking, felt right. Like maybe this was what my hands were meant for all along. I wanted Albany to stay home. It wasn't because I thought she couldn't handle the world, but because she deserved a moment to breathe. She spent her days fixing up the house, airing out rooms that smelled of dust and age. At night, she sat at the table with her papers spread out, while the lamp glowed low. She tried to write. I watched her pen hover, hesitate, scratch out half a sentence and stop. The weight of duty still pressed on her spine even without the badge. On some nights, she folded the pages away without writing a single word. Then trouble came anyway. I was in town, a little ways off, when voices raised sharp and ugly. 2 men, fists already clenched, anger spilling over into violence. Before anyone else could react, Albany stepped in, with only her voice, calm, commanding, unshakable. She put herself between them, spoke like the law was still standing behind her. And somehow, against all odds, they listened. The fight bled out of the air like a storm losing its wind. I stood there watching, smiling before I even realized I was. The law was never just a star on her chest. It was who she was. When it was over, I walked up to her. She looked up at me, her eyes still bright with that fire she carried whether she wanted to or not. I didn't say a word. I just picked her up, spinning her once before kissing her hard on the lips, right there in the open. "Do you know why you're so beautiful?" I murmured against her mouth. She laughed, breathless. "Why?" "Because you're brave," I said, "and honest, and you don't even know how to stop being you." I set her down gently, my forehead resting against hers. I knew then, loving Albany Beth meant accepting that she might never fully escape the woman she was. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want her to.
The morning sunlight spilled through the dusty windows, catching the motes of sawdust dancing in the air. I was on my knees, tightening a loose floorboard, when I felt movement behind me. "Careful?" Archer teased, voice low and amused. "You're going to hurt yourself bending like that." I looked over my shoulder and caught him smirking, arms crossed, leaning against the doorway. He'd been sanding the frame of a cabinet, but clearly he'd decided I was far more interesting. "Oh, don't act like you're not enjoying watching me work," I shot back, brushing my hands on my apron, which was already dusted with splinters and paint. He pushed off the doorway and moved toward me, crouching beside me with a mock-serious expression. "Watching you work is one thing," he said, voice low. "But this bending over, it's a whole different level of distraction." I rolled my eyes, but before I could reply, he reached out and grabbed my wrist, tugging me gently so I fell against him. "Hey!" I exclaimed, but he only chuckled. "You're supposed to be fixing the floor, not me," I said, trying to push him away. But he caught me by the waist, pulling me closer. His hands were warm against the dust-caked skin of mine. "I am helping," he said, leaning down so his lips brushed my ear. Just a little encouragement. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. Encouragement, huh? I murmured, shoving playfully at his chest. Archer laughed softly, the sound low and intimate, before capturing my lips with his in a kiss that was half teasing, half hungry. I found myself leaning into him, responding, letting the world of floorboards and paint fade into the background. When we finally broke apart, both of us laughing breathlessly, he tilted my chin up with a finger. "You're beautiful," he whispered, voice soft, even covered in paint and sweat. I rolled my eyes again, but couldn't hide the smile. "And you're ridiculous," I said, before smacking his arm gently. He grinned, picking up a brush. All right. You fix the floor, I'll handle the cabinets. But if either of us gets distracted..." He let the sentence hang, eyes sparkling. "We might have to take a very long coffee break." The rest of the morning passed in a mix of work and laughter, brushstrokes and splintered wood, each task punctuated by playful jabs or a hand brushing against mine, accidentally. At one point, I was on a ladder painting the corner of a wall, and he crept up behind me, tipping me slightly with his shoulder. I shrieked, nearly losing my balance, but he caught me instantly, holding me against him. "Archer!" I gasped, laughing, trying to wriggle free. "I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself," he said, voice rough with amusement. "You just look irresistible when you work hard." I blushed, but I stayed pressed against him, letting the warmth of his body remind me of why staying here in this half-finished home with him felt more like living than I'd felt in years. By the afternoon, the house smelled faintly of sawdust and paint, but also of something softer. Smoke from the fire, his cologne, and the quiet warmth of shared space. We paused in the center of the living room, leaning into each other, foreheads touching, letting the laughter fade into a gentle, comfortable silence. "This," I murmured, looking around at the half-finished walls and crooked furniture, "is a mess." He chuckled, brushing the stray hair from my face. "Yeah, but it's our mess." And in that moment, I realized it didn't matter how crooked the walls were or how dusty the floors. This was home, with him, and no past, no badge, no law could touch the quiet, small perfection of that. He kissed me again, slow and tender, and I finally allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this chaotic, imperfect, loving life was exactly what we deserved.
The next day moved slower, like it wasn't in any hurry to become anything else. We'd called a truce with the house by mid-afternoon. The tools were set aside, with dust still clinging to our clothes. The place was quiet except for the wind slipping through the open window. I was sitting on the floor with my back against the wall, my legs stretched out, when Albany eased herself down and rested her head in my lap like it belonged there. It just felt natural. It felt right. I ran my fingers gently through her hair, slow and absent-minded, feeling the warmth of her scalp and the steady rhythm of her breathing. For a while, we didn't say anything, just listened to the house breathe a little. "You write anything new?" I asked eventually. She hummed softly, eyes closed. "Maybe." I smiled. "That sounds like a yes." She opened one eye and then sat up, smoothing her dress before reaching for a few folded pages on the table. "I wasn't sure if I was ready to read it yet," she said, almost shy. "You're ready," I said quietly. "I am." She sat across from me, her knees drawn up. I saw the paper trembling just a little in her hands. "It's called Us in the Pines to the Sun That Shines," she said, then took a breath and began. Her voice was steady, but there was emotion in every word. She wrote about two souls hiding beneath tall trees, about shadows giving way to light, about people shaped by hardship learning how to stand still without fear. Her words hit deep, freshly clean and honest, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. Just telling the truth. I didn't interrupt her, nor did I move. I listened to every syllable like it mattered. When she finished, she folded the pages back up and looked at me like she was bracing for something. "That," I said slowly, "needs to be a book." She shrugged, looking away. "I don't know." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "As long as I'm here," I told her, I'm gonna make sure those dreams turn into something real, one way or another." She smiled then, small but full. "This feels like a dream," she said. "Everything's working perfectly." I reached out and kissed her cheek, then her lips, soft and slow. She answered with a harder kiss, one that made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't felt in years. I eased her back gently, instinct taking over, until her hand pressed against my chest. "Not yet," she said softly. I stopped instantly, taking her hand and pressing a kiss into her palm instead. "I understand," I said. "Always." She looked at me then, really looked, and her face turned red. "Breathe, my love," I murmured. She laughed under her breath. "You make me feel like I'm on cloud 9. I got up, poured her a glass of water, and handed it to her. We sat side by side, our shoulders touching, just watching the evening roll in slow and go through the trees. Just the two of us, finally still. The next day started before the sun had fully decided to show itself. The air was cool and sharp, the kind that made your lungs wake up fast. I worked alongside the other hands without much talk, just the sound of boots in dirt, some leather creaking, with tools biting into wood. I pushed myself harder than I needed to, not to prove anything, but because the work kept my head clear. Every swing of the hammer, every pull on a rope, it all had a rhythm to it. It was honest and simple. And every now and then, without meaning to, my thoughts drifted back to Albany. The way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The way her voice softened when she read her stories. The way she leaned into me like she trusted I'd hold her steady. Taking care of her, of us, kept my legs moving when my arms started to burn. Mid-morning, one of the horses got spooked. It broke loose fast, reins snapping free as it bolted toward the open stretch beyond the corral. A couple of the men shouted and scrambling, but I was already moving. My muscle memory just took over. I cut wide, with my boots digging into the dirt, my heart pounding, trying my best to keep myself focused. The horse fought me back, head tossing, with its hooves churning up dust. I took a hard hit to the shoulder, nearly went down, but I kept my grip, talked low and steady until the animal finally settled. When I brought it back in, my chest was heaving and my shirt was soaked through. One of the men clapped me on the back. "You handle yourself like a natural," he said. "Work, horses, feels like you were born to it." I shrugged, catching my breath. "Helps when you got something worth working for." They looked at me, curious. "When someone loves you," I said simply, "and you love them back, it keeps you going." No one argued with that. Later, as the sun dipped lower, I leaned against the fence line, arms resting on the top rail. The field stretched out quiet and gold, the kind of peace I never thought I'd earn. I thought about everything that came before, all the running, the gunfights, and the men I followed when I didn't know any better. It all felt far away now, like another life worn thin and folded up. Then I thought about Albany, about mornings with her, about evenings by the fire, about a future that didn't feel like something I had to steal. The warmth settled in my chest easy and steady. She's all the woman I need, I thought. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough.
The house was quiet in the way mornings are only allowed to be when no one's rushing the day along. Light slipped in through the window and laid itself across the table where I sat. Paper spread out in front of me, the pen resting between my fingers. I hadn't meant to write anything long, just a few lines to clear my head. But the words kept coming, slow and careful, like they'd been waiting for permission. It wasn't a letter for anyone else. It was for the woman I used to be. I wrote about letting go without erasing myself, about choosing a new beginning built from old pieces that had fallen apart but weren't useless, about a life that didn't start with running or end with regret, a life that felt earned. It was a half confession, half farewell. I folded the paper and tucked it beneath a loose floorboard before I could second-guess myself. Later, I heard Archer moving through the house, the soft thud of tools, wood creaking as he worked. I was pouring coffee when he stepped into the room, holding the folded paper in his hand. "I found this while fixing the floor, love," he said simply, offering it back to me without looking at it again. There was no teasing in his voice, or questions, just trust. My throat tightened as I took it from him. That evening, as the light faded and the house settled, I finally told him the truth. "It was just in case, course," I admitted quietly. "In case this life falls apart, in case the past catches up." He didn't rush to answer. He never did. Instead, he told me about his day, about how hard he'd worked, harder than he had in years, about how it was changing him, making him feel like someone worth standing still for. "Your words matter to me, Albany," he said. "If words matter to you, then they matter to me too." I looked up at him then. "Tell me you love me," I asked softly. He didn't hesitate. "I love you," he said, slow, deep, like the words had weight and meaning and nowhere else they belonged. I stepped closer, our breaths mingling, our lips inches apart. "Say it again," I whispered. "I love you." I kissed him then, hard and sweet all at once, like I'd been holding it back all day. When we parted, I rested my forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. "Hold me tonight," I said quietly. He wrapped his arms around me without a word, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like the future wasn't something I had to brace for. It was something I was allowed to lean into. The storm took the town all at once. Lanterns went dark down the road, one by one, until the countryside disappeared into a thick, breathing black. Wind pressed against the house, with rain rattling the windows hard enough to make the glass shiver. Inside, the only light came from the hearth and a few candles burning low, their flames bending and straightening like they were alive. I sat on the edge of the bed, knees drawn up and arms wrapped loosely around myself. I wasn't afraid. Not the way fear used to feel. This was something else. Restlessness, the kind that crawled under your skin and reminded you of too many nights spent listening for footsteps, for gunshots, or something bad to finally happen. Archer didn't sleep. He stayed with me, sitting close, his hand moving slowly along my back, grounding me. Sometimes his fingers traced circles along my legs, warm and steady, like he was reminding me that I was here, safe with him, that the storm was just a storm. "What scares you now?" I asked quietly, watching the rain streak down the window. He didn't answer right away. His eyes were on the dark beyond the glass. "I'm afraid of letting anything bad happen to you," he said finally. I swallowed. "I'm afraid of losing something good," I admitted. "This, and you. There's so many ways things can go wrong." The rain came down harder. "I just want the old past of what I was to finally die," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "You have nothing to be afraid of while I'm here with you," he said. "But it's dangerous," I insisted. "What we're doing? Loving like this?" He turned toward me then, cutting me off gently but firmly. "My love," he said, his voice low, unwavering. "I'm dangerous. I'm dangerous for you. I'm dangerous because I love you." I stared at him. The firelight caught his face. The honesty there was the resolve. He didn't say it like a threat. He said it like a vow. "I'll make myself into a weapon," he continued quietly, "if it means you'll be safe." Something inside me broke open then. I leaned into him, arms wrapping around his neck, holding him like I needed him to be real. He held me just as tightly, his breath warm against my hair. "Let me show you how much I love you," he whispered near my ear. Before I could respond, he lifted me easily, carrying me upstairs while the storm roared outside like it was trying to tear the world apart. He laid me down gently on the bed, like I was something precious, something worth protecting. I looked up at him, my chest tight. "I'm afraid," I admitted. He bent down, kissed me slow and sheer, his lips warm and reassuring. "I'll take good care of you," he murmured. And in the candlelit quiet, with the storm raging beyond the walls, I let myself believe him. That night, we didn't rush. We moved together with trust, with tenderness, with all the things we'd been carrying finally set down. The past stayed outside with the rain. For the first time, I slept without listening for danger, wrapped in his arms, knowing I was not alone.
Dawn came in quiet, like it didn't want to disturb anything. I woke slow, the way you do when your body doesn't feel the need to be ready for a fight. The room still smelled faintly of rain and candle smoke, warmth lingering in the sheets. For a moment, I didn't move. I just lay there, breathing, listening. Then I realized Albany wasn't beside me. I sat up, heart giving a small instinctive jolt. That's when I saw her through the open door. She was standing outside in the pale morning light, barefoot on the wet earth. She looked different, softer, like she wasn't carrying the whole world on her shoulders for once. She didn't hear me at first. She was just standing there, eyes closed, letting the sun touch her face like she was memorizing the feeling. I grabbed the blanket and stepped out behind her, wrapping it around her shoulders. She startled just slightly, then relaxed into me. "Oh my God," I murmured without thinking. "You are so gorgeous." She laughed softly, but I could see it in the way she smiled. She believed me. The sunlight hit her just right, warming her skin until it glowed, her brown eyes catching the light when she opened them and looked back at me. I brushed my thumb along her cheek, then glanced down. "And your feet are pretty too, my love," I added with a grin. "Looks like I need to start rubbing them for you." She shook her head, amused. "I'll get them clean once I head back inside." I said. "Still think they're perfect." We stood there quietly for a moment, the land still damp and breathing, the storm washed clean out of everything. I could feel the weight of last night settling into something more steadier, something that wasn't just heat or need. "I just wanted to make you feel good," I said quietly, breaking the silence. "That's all I wanted." She turned in my arms and looked at me. "I needed that," she said. "So much. You breathed new life into me last night, Archer. I didn't want you to stop." Her honesty hit me deeper than any confession ever had. "I don't know what our future holds," she went on softer now. "But I don't want to think about it too much. Not while everything feels this good." I nodded. "Choosing me means choosing uncertainty," she said gently, like she was testing the words out loud. "And loving you," I answered, just as honest, "means I can never go back to who I was." She reached up and rested her forehead against my chest. We didn't need to say anything else. We both knew. What happened between us wasn't just passion, nor was it a moment of weakness. It was a turning point. I held her there as the morning stretched out around us.
A few days after the storm, the air felt different. It was much lighter, but unsettled, like something waiting to be decided. I was hanging my coat when the man from the neighboring town came by. He spoke to me carefully, very respectful, as if he already knew who I used to be. They needed someone temporary, he said, a mediator, more like a steady hand. Not official law enforcement or anything, but close enough that the old instincts stirred in my chest before I could stop them. By the time I got home, my thoughts were knotted tight. Archer was at the table, fixing a loose strap on his work gloves. He looked up the moment I stepped inside, reading my face the way he always did now. "What is it?" he asked gently. I told him about the town and what they were requesting, and the way it made my pulse quicken like I'd been handed something familiar and dangerous. To my surprise, he didn't hesitate. "You should do it if you want to," he said. "You're good at that kind of thing. Always have been." Relief washed through me. It was so warm and immediate. But later, when the fire burned lower and the house grew quiet, he sat beside me and took my hand, thumb rubbing slow circles into my skin. "I just want to say something," he said. "And I don't want you to take it the wrong way." I met his eyes. "You're not worried I'd turn you in, are you?" He let out a small chuckle, shaking his head. "No, never that." His expression softened, then grew more serious. "I'm worried that if you take it, word gets out about who you were, what you were doing, and the closer you get to that world again, the closer the past might find us both." The truth of it settled between us, heavy and undeniable. I spent hours turning it over in my head, guilt creeping in where pride had been. I wanted to help, I needed to help, but not at the cost of dragging him back into danger he'd fought so hard to leave behind. By the time I spoke again, the decision felt clear. "You know what?" I said quietly. "Screw the position." He looked at me surprised. "I'll help by just being myself," I continued. "I don't need permission or a title for that. I don't want to put you in danger, my love, and I don't want to feel like I'm choosing the world over you." I stepped closer, cupping his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. "You're not holding me back," I said firmly. "Not even a little." His hands came to my waist, pulling me in until there was no space left between us. His forehead rested against mine. "And you," he said softly, "are the bravest woman I've ever known." I kissed him then, just letting him know that, I'm sure. Because loving him didn't mean losing myself. It meant choosing us.
A week later, she found me on the porch just as the sun was starting to dip, the light turning the fields gold. "I've decided something," Albany said, standing in the doorway with that careful excitement she gets when hope scares her a little. "I'm going to write a storybook, and I want to get it published." For a moment, my chest felt like it might split open from pride. I stood, crossed the space between us, and took her hands. That's incredible," I said, and I meant it with every part of me. Seeing her claim something that belonged to her, something no one could take away, lit me up inside. But even as I smiled, something darker stirred beneath it. Publishing meant more eyes, her name leaving paper trails. The chance that someone would read her words and recognize the shape of our past hiding between the lines. Another roadblock placed in her path because of me. Another thing she might have to give up without ever saying it out loud. Later, I sat alone outside, elbows on my knees, staring at the dirt like it might answer me. Through the window, I could see her at her desk, pen moving steadily, her face alive in a way it hadn't been for years. She deserves better than this, I thought. Better than hiding. Better than loving a man who turns every dream into a risk. When I came back inside, she looked up with that soft smile that always undoes me and held out a few pages. "I finished one," she said. "For you." I smiled back, but instead of taking them, I set them gently aside and sat next to her, rubbing my temple as the words piled up in my head. "It's so good to see you this happy, my love," I said carefully. "But it dawned on me, if you publish that book, it could get picked up by the wrong person. Someone who knows us, knows me." She went quiet. "Oh," she said. Then she shook her head and smiled, trying to make it small. "That's okay. I'm fine just doing this for fun. I can keep it to myself." Something in me snapped. I stood so fast the chair scraped the floor, my fist slamming into the wall before I even realized what I was doing. I cursed under my breath. I could feel the heat flooding my chest. "Archer," she said, worry sharp in her eyes. "What's wrong?" I sank back down, covering my face with my hand. "I'm holding you back," I said, the words heavy and ugly when they finally came out. "Every gift that comes your way gets blocked because of who I was. Because of me." I looked at her then, really looked. "You deserve better, and I want to give you better. I don't want you shrinking your dreams to keep me safe." My voice steadied as the truth settled in. "If this town ever needs a sheriff, a mediator, a mentor, I want you to take it. If you want to publish that book, you finish it. The world deserves to hear your story, your own." Her eyes shone. It wasn't fear, but was something fierce and real. "I don't want anyone to find out," she said softly. I reached for her hands, holding them tight. "I told you before," I said low. "I'm dangerous. Dangerous only for you. I'll protect you from anything. I'd give everything, including my life, if it meant you get to live yours fully." That was all it took. She was in my arms in the next breath, kissing me like she needed me to believe her love was real. It was unbreakable. I kissed her back, slow and deep, grounding us both. The world falling away until there was only the warmth of her, the certainty of us. Right there in the living room, surrounded by half-fixed walls and unfinished dreams, I held her and knew this much was true. Loving her meant standing in the fire so she never had to.
A few weeks later, Albany did something she hadn't told a soul about. Not Archer, not even herself, really. At least not out loud. She mailed the story under a pen name she barely recognized, one she'd written in a moment of quiet bravery at the kitchen table while Archer slept upstairs. The envelope was plain, the words inside were not. She told herself it didn't matter what came of it, that this wasn't about being seen, it was about proof. So when the letter arrived in thin paper, the careful kind, with her false name typed neatly at the top, making her hands shook so badly she had to sit down, she read it once, then again, then a third time, much slower, as if the words might vanish if she blinked too hard. Accepted. She pressed the letter to her chest and closed her eyes. She didn't think about fame nor the danger. All she felt was the quiet, undeniable truth that her voice still worked and that it mattered. She didn't show Archer right away. When she finally did, it was evening. The house smelled like wood and dust and the faint trace of soap from his hands. She stood in front of him, the letter folded and unfolded so many times it was soft as cloth. "I sent something in," she said. "A while ago." Archer didn't interrupt. He never did when her voice sounded like that. She handed him the letter. He read it slowly and carefully. When he looked up, she was braced for fear or see a tightness in his jaw, the quiet calculation of risk. Instead, he smiled. Not wide or anything, just something real and gentle, like a man recognizing a sunrise he didn't think he'd live to see. "I'll admit," he said softly, "it scares me a little, knowing the world's touching something that came from you." He swallowed, then looked back at her. "But it fixes something in me, seeing them want your words." She felt her throat tighten. "This isn't you leaving me," he added. "This is you claiming what was always yours." That night, he cooked. She sat at the table, watching him move through the kitchen like he belonged there, sleeves rolled up, concentration written into his shoulders. When he set the plate in front of her, she laughed in surprise, then ate every bite, warmth blooming in her chest that had nothing to do with the food. Later, when the house had gone quiet and the fire burned low, they found each other without rushing, hands familiar with touches unguarded. They moved together slowly, reverently, like two people who knew exactly what it had cost to arrive here. He whispered her name like it was something precious. She answered him the same way. The world narrowed until there was only breath and warmth and the shared understanding that this was not escape. It was arrival. After she rested against him, listening to his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, feeling more anchored than she had in years, her words were out there now, and she was still here. But with him.
By the time the sun started leaning low, Archer's back ached in a good way. Dust clung to his sleeves, sweat dried into his collar, and his hands smelled like leather and iron and honest work. He liked that smell. It meant he'd made it through another day without running, without hiding behind a gun. He was crossing the street toward the hitching rail when he felt it, that old prickle at the base of his neck. A stranger stood across the way. He was young, clean enough to not be drifting, not dressed like a hunter or a hired gun. No real weight to him either, just a man passing through town. Their eyes met for a half-second longer than necessary, and the stranger tipped his hat in an acknowledging type of way. Archer frowned, then dismissed it. Town's got travelers. Faces blurred together after a while. He kept walking. But later, while they were putting tools away, one of the ranch hands leaned close and said, "That fella by the mercantile been asking about you." Archer's stomach tightened. "About me how?" "Didn't say much, just asked who you were, where you worked." That night, the house felt quieter than usual. Albany noticed immediately. She always did. He told her while she poured coffee, keeping his voice casual even though his thoughts weren't. She listened without interrupting, leaning against the counter, eyes steady on his face. "Did he look familiar?" she asked. "Not at all," Archer said. That's what bothers me. She reached up, rubbing the bridge of his nose the way she did when she wanted to pull him back into the room. Just don't hurt him, she said softly. I won't, he promised. But the words felt thin even to him. The next afternoon, he saw the man again, between two houses, watching, not hiding, but not wanting to be seen either. Archer didn't think. He just moved, boots on dirt, a shadow crossing the narrow space. The man was startled when Archer stepped in front of him, hand twitching like he expected a blow that never came. Archer kept his voice low and calm. Do I know you? The man stared up at him, searching his face with something close to disbelief. Then, recognition. You don't remember me at all, the man said. Archer shook his head once. I was one of the soldiers, the man said, back at Black Cut Pass. The name hit Archer like cold water. You tackled one of your own to stop him, the man continued. You saved my life at that moment. Archer's chest tightened. Faces flashed through his mind, the smoke, the shouting, the blood in the dirt, but none of them settled. The man smiled. It was small and honest. Seeing you walking free, working honest, burning all that old mess behind you, it gave me hope. Thought maybe men really could change. Archer exhaled slowly. Something heavy shifted inside him. I'm looking for work, the man added. Heard you were solid. Thought maybe the ranch might need another hand. Archer studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I'll put in a word. Relief spread across the man's face. He stepped forward and offered his hand. Thank you, he said, for then and now. They shook hands. As the man walked away, Archer stood there a moment longer, the echo of the past finally settling into place. Not haunting him, just standing behind him. When Archer turned toward home, the weight he carried felt different. Lighter, like something at last had been set right.
Night settles gently around the house, the kind of quiet that feels earned rather than empty. From the open window, Albany can hear the soft chorus of crickets and the distant sigh of wind moving through the trees. Inside, the lamplight is low and warm, throwing long shadows that sway as the flame flickers. She sits on the edge of the bed, boots kicked aside, sleeves rolled up, feeling the slow ache of the day finally leave her bones. Archer's nearby, leaning against the doorframe, watching her the way he does when he thinks she isn't paying attention, like he's memorizing something he's afraid might disappear. You're staring, she says softly, not looking up. He smiles, crossing the room. Just making sure you're real. That makes her laugh, quiet and breathy. She reaches for his hand, tugging him closer until he's standing between her knees. Up close, she can smell the day on him. Wood, dust, clean sweat, and something steadier beneath it all. Safety. Or maybe trust. She rests her forehead against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, slower than it used to be. Some nights, she admits, voice barely above a whisper, I still expect to wake up and find this gone, like it was something I borrowed. His hands come up carefully, settling at her back as if asking permission even now. It's not borrowed, he says. It's built, brick by brick. She looks up at him then, really looks, at the softened edges, the calm in his eyes, the man he's choosing to be every day. Emotion swells in her chest, warm and almost overwhelming. She lifts a hand to his face, thumb brushing along his jaw, and he leans into the touch without thinking. Their kiss is slow, unhurried. No hunger in it, just feeling. When they part, they stay close, noses brushing, breaths mingling. I don't need grand things, she says quietly, just this. You, nights like this. Archer presses a kiss to her temple, then her cheek, then rests his forehead against hers. Then this is what we'll keep, he murmurs. She draws him down beside her, curling into his side, her head fitting naturally against his shoulder, as if it's always known where it belongs. His arm wraps around her, firm and protective, without ever feeling like a cage. Her fingers trace idle patterns over his hand, grounding herself in the simple truth of his presence. Outside, the night deepens. Inside, Albany closes her eyes, her heart steady, full. For once, she isn't listening for danger or planning for tomorrow. She's just here, held, chosen, and quietly loved.
Morning breaks pale and cool over the ranch, the kind of light that feels honest. I'm already sweating by the time the sun clears the low hills, my hands rough with rope, boots heavy with dust. There's a rhythm to the work now, feed, fence, horses, that settles my mind in a way gunfire never did. That's when it happens. Two of the younger hands are squared off near the corral, their faces red, chests breathing in and out heaving. One shoves the other hard. "You son of a bitch!" The taller one snarls, fist clenched. "I'll punch your teeth down your throat." For a split second, my body remembers old instincts, the fast step forward, the ready violence. But I stop myself. I step between them instead, hands open, with my voice low but steady. "Hey," I say, firm enough to cut through the noise. "Calm down." They hesitate, surprised. I look from one to the other. We're all tired. We're all exhausted. Last thing any of us needs is you two throwing punches and getting fired before noon. I gesture around us, to the horses, the fence line, the endless work waiting. We're in this together, all right? Don't make today harder than it already is. Something eases. Their shoulders dropped. One of them spits in the dirt and backs off. The other mutters an apology. The moment passes like a storm that never quite forms. Later, as I'm mending a fence, the ranch owner rides up. He watches me work for a moment before speaking. "Handled that well," he says. "Could have gone bad." I shrug, uncomfortable with praise. "Didn't need to." He nods, thoughtful. "I've been meaning to ask, thinking about putting you in charge of a small crew. You've got a way about you. Folks, listen. Leadership. The word sits heavy in my chest long after he rides off. Me? A leader? I followed men before, followed them straight into blood and ruin. I finished the day quieter than usual, my mind turning it over again and again. That evening, when I tell Albany, it comes out rough, like I don't quite believe it myself. They want me to start leading, I say, standing in the doorway while she's at the table. They want me to lead the crew. She looks up at me and she smiles, that knowing smile. "You know," she says softly, standing. "This is what you were always meant to be." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "You think so, love?" She steps closer, eyes warm. "I know so." She opens her arms without hesitation. I lift her easily, her laugh soft against my neck as she wraps herself around me. "My big, strong, handsome man," she teases, pressing a kiss to my cheek. I hold her there, solid and real in my arms.
I notice it before I want to. The same man at the counter asking the same question twice. The clerk flipping through the ledger slower than usual, like he's hoping something will jump out at him. A stranger outside the post office who doesn't go in, nor does he leave, he just waits, just enough to make my shoulders tighten. That afternoon, a letter comes. The same paper. They want another story. My hands start shaking before I even finish reading it. It wasn't fear exactly. It was shock and excitement, the kind that makes your chest feel too small. I sit at the table for a long time just staring at the words. That night, Archer comes in dusty and tired, talking like it's any other day. James asked if I want to go fishing tomorrow evening, he says, setting his hat down. Thought I might. I slide the letter across the table without saying anything. He reads it once, then again. Then he looks up at me. This is great, he says simply. I blink. It is? If they want another one, he says, steady as ever. You give it to them. I swallow. Are you sure? Yes, Albany. He gets up, comes around the table, pulls me into him. His arms are warm, solid. I'm proud of you. I shake my head against his chest. No, Archer, I'm proud of us. He holds me a little tighter, and for the first time all day, the room feels quiet in the right way.
The lake sits low and quiet at the edge of town. Water was dark and still, like it's holding its breath. Evening light stretches long across the surface, turning the ripples gold. I get there first, boots crunching over gravel, hands loose at my sides. It feels strange not carrying a gun. Not bad, just strange. James shows up a minute later, grinning like a kid, 2 fishing poles slung over his shoulder. "Got you an extra," he says, tossing one my way. "You ready, Archer?" "'Cause I sure am." I catch it and shake my head, smiling despite myself. "You seem real excited just to catch small fish, man. I've fished before. Pulled big catfish out of muddy rivers when I was on my own." He snorts. "Oh yeah? That a challenge?" "We'll see about that," I say. We cast our lines and settle in. 20 minutes go by easy, the kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything of you. Just water, wind, the soft creak of reeds. James breaks it first. "After that night, Black Cut Pass," he says, eyes on the water. "I decided to unsign from duty. Seeing all those bullets fly like that." He exhales. "Gave me nightmares." "Yeah," I say quietly. "I know what you mean. I've been on my own since, jumping from house to house. Ended up here." He shrugs. It's quiet, peaceful. I glance over at him. "You got that right." We fall silent again. Lines drift. Somewhere a bird calls. "When I saw you again," James says, softer now, "I was surprised, not just that you were alive, but who you are now. You changed from within. You adapted instead of fighting it. A lot of men can't do that." "It takes strong individuals to adapt," I say, still watching the water. "Especially for the ones they love." He nods. Then, almost casually, "You got yourself a really beautiful wife, man. Thank goodness I found out she was with you. Didn't want any trouble." I just hum in response, letting that sit. A few minutes pass, then James's line jerks hard. "Oh, look at that," he says, scrambling up. "You got one, son." "Sure looks like it," I say. "Almost as tough as my uncle this one is." He strains, pulling, and then the line snaps. "Damn it," he groans. "I almost had it." I laugh. Well, no need to cry about that." Then it hits me. I look at him. "Hey, what the hell did you mean by almost as tough as your uncle?" He freezes, turns, his face shifts, surprise, then resignation. "Oh, nothing, man. Just saying something stupid." I don't smile now. "James," he sighs. "All right, my uncle. He's a leading Pinkerton agent, hard ass, hardly ever sleeps." I stay calm, still as the lake. "He hates me for signing out of the army," James continues. "But I think he knows I'm here. Might pay me a visit." I nod once. "Thanks for letting me know." I reel in my line, set the pole down. "Fishing with you was fun, honestly." He looks relieved. "Yeah, same." I head back toward town as the sun dips low, the sky turning the color of rust and fire. I'm not afraid, not anymore. If the time comes, I'll leave. I already know that. But more than that, I'll make sure Albany is protected, no matter what finds us.
The man arrives just before supper. He had a clean coat, city shoes that don't belong on our dirt street. He doesn't ask loud questions, nor does he smile much either. He just looks around, at the storefronts, at the faces, at the way people move when he passes. I notice him immediately. So do others. And I see it then. Small things. A shopkeeper giving short answers. A woman changing the subject. Someone stepping between him and one of the ranch workers without making it obvious. The town doesn't say anything out loud, but they remember. They remember who helped them sleep easier, who fixed fences, settled fights, fed families. By afternoon, I see the man grab James outside the livery. Fingers tight around his arm, his voice sharp, angry, carrying just enough that I know it's not friendly. James looks shaken. I can't hear the words, but I don't need to. That evening, Archer tells me everything. About what James told him, about whom his uncle is. I don't panic. I feel something click into place instead. Old instincts, the part of me that learned to breathe when everyone else started shouting. We don't run, I tell him, not yet. Not until we know why he's here. He watches me closely, like he's checking for cracks. I don't give him any. The next day, a letter comes. My second story, shortlisted. They want to meet the author. A real meeting, a real door opening. My hands shake again, but this time it's different. This time it feels earned. That same afternoon, Archer comes home quieter than usual. He tells me the stranger was asking about Belle Hazard again. Details too sharp to be coincidence. Someone in town pulls Archer aside, swears he didn't say a word, asks who Belle Hazard even is. Archer tells him not to worry about it. I can hear the strain behind that calm when he tells me later. That night, after the lamps are lit and the house settles, Archer takes my hand. Listen, Albany. His voice is steady, but his grip is too tight. He tells me his plan, turning himself in. Just a false confession. Something small, but something survivable. Just enough to pull the attention away from me. For a second, I can't breathe. What? I say. Are you seriously just going to give up like that? He looks at me like this hurts him more than it ever could me. It's not giving up. It's showing you how much I love you, giving up my freedom so you can live on. For me, for us. I shove him. Hard. No! I snap, anger burning straight through my chest. I'm not letting you go. I chose this life with you because I saw something no one else did. My voice cracks. I don't stop. I saw a man who changed, who chose to be good when no one was watching, and I fell in love with that man. He looks at me, eyes dark, focused, too resolved. I'm sorry, Albany, but I have to. I slap him. The sound hangs between us. If you disappear from me, I lose you, I say, shaking. If you stay, we face it together. That's the only future I want. He stares at me for a heartbeat. Then he lifts me clean off the floor, holding me tight like he's afraid I'll vanish. Okay, he says into my hair. We'll figure something out together, my love. I let out a breath that feels like it's been trapped for days. I press my mouth to his ear, half laughing, half crying. I'll kill you before I let you leave me, I whisper. He huffs, a broken little laugh, and I kiss his ear, holding on like this moment is the truth we're choosing.
Early evening settles soft over town, that pale gold light that makes even warm places look gentle. I'm mending a loose strap by the door when Albany comes in, holding a letter like it might vanish if she lets go. They accepted it, she says, breath catching. It's official. They want an author's note. For a moment, all I can do is look at her. The way her eyes shine. The way her hands tremble just enough to tell the truth. I feel something ease in my chest. Like a knot I didn't know I was carrying has finally loosened. That's good, I say. That's really good. We sit at the table and talk it through, steady and careful. Pen name stays. Details shift just enough to protect us without lying. The kind of truth that can't be pinned down but still carries weight. Once it's printed, anyone who tries to make us disappear will have to explain why. Words as a shield. I never thought I'd see the day. The next morning, we decide not to wait anymore. Albany chooses the general store, public, with half the town passing through whether they mean to or not. She walks in calm, chin level, like she never stopped wearing the badge. I hang back near the shelves, close enough to hear, far enough not to crowd. The city man is already there, pretending to study canned goods. He looks up when we enter, eyes sharp. Afternoon, he says lightly. Albany nods. You had questions. He smiles, starts talking, nothing direct at first. Town this, weather that. Then his gaze slides to me. Archer Wilson, he murmurs, like testing the sound. How does it feel living in civilization? I meet his eyes. It'll feel even better with you bastards off my back. His smile twitches. Bastards, he chuckles. How'd you know there were two of us? That's when the other one steps in from the corner, older, thinner smile. The kind of man who thinks patience is power. Hello, Mrs. Beth, he says. Or should I say Mrs. Wilson? I wondered what happened to you. Sheriff one day, gone the next. He offers his hand. Agent Ross. Albany doesn't take it. She kisses my cheek instead, soft, deliberate. How sad, she says evenly, that it took an outlaw for me to realize my full worth. I step forward. What do you want? Ross sighs like this is all terribly inconvenient. We're not here for what you think. Bell Hazard's death left questions higher up. Someone wants them buried, quietly. His eyes flick to me. We want your help cleaning it up. Least you could do for your past. And if I say no, I ask, then you rot, he says simply. I don't raise my voice. I'm not going anywhere, so you can use me and take what I rebuilt. Ross's hand moves fast, revolver out, leveled at my chest. You're coming with us, son. A click answers him. The shopkeeper stands behind the counter, shotgun steady. No, he isn't. Another man lowers his newspaper, revolver flashing in his hand. Civilized folks forgive, he says, and we fight for those who earn their keep. For a long second, no one breathes. Ross's eyes burn into mine. This isn't over. Never is, I say. They leave without another word. That evening, I thank the men who stood up for us. Simple words, firm handshakes. It feels right. Night comes quiet. In our room, I lie back on the bed, exhaustion settling into my bones. Albany follows, crawling up to me, resting her weight there like she belongs, which she does. I told you I was dangerous, I murmur, smiling. I know, my love, she says. I'll pack before sunrise, I add. Heard about some good land out west, secluded. We could make it ours. She cups my face and kisses me. Slow, warm, sure. The kind of kiss that says we're choosing this. We're in this together, she whispers. I hold her there, heart steady and believe it.
I wake to voices downstairs, low and familiar, the kind that belong to morning before the world decides what it's going to demand from you. Archer's voice is easy to pick out. It's very calm and steady. It carries more weight than it used to. Near Harmony Hill, another man is saying, Josh. I recognize him from the ranch. Right by the lake. I only ever use it for vacations, honestly. Been sitting empty most of the year. I roll onto my side, pulling the blanket up just under my chin, listening. It's already set up, Josh continues. Beds, tables, a stove. You won't have to fix much or haul furniture. It's quiet out there. Secluded. There's a pause. I imagine Archer standing there, probably with his hands folded the way he does when something actually matters to him. Thank you, Josh, Archer says. His voice is genuine, unguarded. It honestly means a lot to us. A soft chuckle. Of course, man. You two earned it. Least I could do. Boots on wood. The door opens, then closes. The house exhales into silence. I hear Archer on the stairs, each step familiar enough that my body recognizes him before my mind does. I close my eyes just as the bedroom door opens. Good morning, beautiful. I don't answer. A beat. Then amusement warms his voice. I know you're not sleeping, love. I feel the bed dip as he leans over me. His lips find mine, slow, firm, unhurried. I smile before I can stop myself. There it is, he murmurs. Knew it. I open my eyes. He's smiling down at me, hair still a little messy, face softer in the morning light. This is the version of him I keep closest. If you haven't heard, he says, brushing his thumb along my cheek. I've got some good news. We've already got land set up, a cabin at a place called Harmony Hill. I reach for his hand, lacing my fingers through his. That sounds peaceful, I say. Sounds so nice to be away from everything. That's the idea. His eyes don't leave mine. I'm hoping this is the last time we move, that we finally get a piece of land we can settle on. Something tight in my chest loosens. I like the sound of final, I tell him. He leans down and kisses my forehead like it's a promise. By afternoon, the house is a controlled mess. Archer loads the wagon with quiet focus, stacking what little we own like it all matters. which it does. I hand him things, brush past him, steal touches where I can. James shows up while Archer's tying down the last bundle. He looks nervous. His eyes were downcast. I wanted to say I'm sorry, James says, about everything. Archer doesn't hesitate. He steps forward, puts a hand on James's shoulder. It's all right, he says. Just take care of yourself. James nods, relief clear on his face. You too. The road out of town stretches easy and open. I sit beside Archer, the wagon rolling beneath us, the world widening with every mile. We talk, tease, and laugh. He squeezes my hand when the path gets rough. I lean into him when the wind kicks up. When Harmony Hill finally comes into view, my breath catches. The cabin sits high, quiet, looking out over the lake like it's been waiting. Trees cradle the land. The water reflects the sky, calm and endless. Archer pulls the reins, stopping us at the crest. He looks at me, eyes bright with something like disbelief. This is it, he says softly. I smile, feeling the truth of it settle deep. Yeah, I whisper. It really is.